What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Steelers Breakdown Podcast. Nick Farabaugh here, and I'm joined today by a very special guest. Let me try my hand at this. You know the man. He's from the Locked On Steelers podcast, Christopher Carter. He does this for me when I go on Locked On. I think I did it well enough. Did I?
You did a great job. Hey, man, you got that classic Pit Media voice with all the broadcasting experience you got there. So you did a great job. Thank you, Nick.
Welcome for the intro. This is Chris's first time on the podcast, of course. I'm over on Locked On all the time, and I said, let me bring Chris over here to this side of the coin, right? But today we're going to talk a little bit about Steelers cornerback room and their safety room. I want to talk about this because this has been something that you guys, when you've been commenting under my videos and my Twitter and everything, you're asking about the corner room, and I think there's a lot of concern about the corner room this year. But Chris, I want to get your thoughts on this because the Steelers replaced Dante Jackson with Darius Slay. Slot corner still a question. Who they have is Beanie Bishop plus maybe Castro, Kent. You got a few questions there, but they actually, I think, got better at corner this year. I don't know where you think though.
I actually think they did too. I think Dante Jackson was a nice placeholder, and let's face it, Darius Slay is also a placeholder. But Darius Slay is a more instinctive placeholder. He's a guy that's going to bring a lot more to the table than what Dante did. And that's not no disrespect to Dante Jackson. I think he was a solid veteran that got an injury in the second half of the season that kind of tailored back what he was able to do for the Steelers. But he was certainly a good addition for the Steelers defense. I think Darius Slay can be a better one, and now with Corey Trice having more experience, you're hoping that he's healthier. Also, you got Juan Thornhill. I think that this secondary. This could be the best version of the secondary that we've seen since like the Hayden Nelson era. Now, granted, I do think they'd love to see have a corner next to. They'd have love to have two corners that they know are their corners for the long run, and not be not have to worry about exchanging one out every year like they have with Patrick Peterson and Dante Jackson and now Darius Slay. But for what they have going into this season, I think that there's a lot of upside with this group that can be achieved.
Yeah, that was the one thing that, I was like, why didn't they sign a Charvarius Ward, a DJ Reed, a Byron Murphy? But Darius Slay coming in, I'm saying this, and this is going to be pretty blunt. It's going to be hard for them, for Darius Slay not to be better than I think Peterson, Wallace, and Jackson. Jackson did what he did well. He had the ball hawking ability, but Slay had a really good year. Even though he's going to be 34, he had a
Yeah.
really good year last year. He's going to have a dramatic fall if not to be better. And then you still have Joey Porter Jr., who's kind of the question of this all is, Chris, how good do you see Joey Porter Jr. being? Because the penalties are there. My biggest thing with Joey is just stop making the dumb penalties. It's don't
Yeah.
tackle Andre Yoshivas when you're there. And then I went back and watched the same game, Chris. There's a rep where he is pressed up against T. Higgins. He grabs T. Higgins by the chest plate and just rips him to the ground right away. And it's a holding call. And it's like, just get rid of the dumb penalties. I can live with some penalties if they're smart penalties. I want him to trust his feet and I want him to trust his technique because I think if he does that, he can be a really, really good player.
The word trust there that you used, I think is very pertinent because a lot of these penalties happen because I don't think that he fully trusts that he's able to win on his own with some of these reps. Because a lot of times he does. A lot of times he will be in position, create the really tight passing window that the quarterback has to fit the ball through and be there. And then he just doesn't play the ball. He'll be like, you know what? I didn't do enough here. I gotta hit this guy. I gotta do something to knock this guy off. And it's instinctual, right? And it's one of those things that it's something that you can take away, like you can eliminate. You have to mentally work at it and practice and try to get better at it. But that's what I think that the big thing is. It's trusting his work because when you watch him on tape, Nick, there's so many times that he is more than just in the right place. He is in the right spot. He's understanding. He's countering what you're trying to do. It's not that he's bad at taking on route runners or bad at taking on fast guys. It's that when he does, and like, look, every cornerback gets beat at sometimes, but there's a lot of times where he wins and he then wastes the win of how he set up the route in the coverage by committing a penalty there. And he gets away with it sometimes here and there as well. And listen, a lot of cornerbacks get away with that kind of stuff. Like there's every cornerback shoves and pushes and does things to try to win because it's a very, very hard position to play at a high level. But I think that that's something that's very attainable for Joey Porter Jr. and it's something that I'm pretty sure Gerald Alexander is going to drill into his head. As the new cornerbacks coach, I think Grady Brown was trying to get that in his head. But this will be an interesting thing. Like, one dynamic I can tell you is just different from when you watch those open session practices. Grady Brown's more of the laid back coach that's gonna tell you what you need to do in the film room, and then see how you perform on the field, and then he'll address it there. Gerald Alexander ain't waiting. That man is calling you out to your face on the field and in practice, and we'll all see it. So I think it'll be interesting to see the impact of that kind of coaching on Joey Porter Jr. this year.
Yeah, I think he's a coachable guy. He's improved his zone coverage instincts. He's improved his tackling. So I think there's coachability there. It's just going to be about this part of his game. Can he fix that? I also think playing that egregious style of penalties, it opens yourself way up to kind of being highlighted by referees and getting a lot of more
Yep.
ticky-tack penalties your way too. So cleaning up the egregious is big for him. I think in the depth part of this, you talk about Corey Trice. Brandon Eccles is also there. I think he's a roster lock, to be quite honest with you.
Hmm.
He's better depth than they had. Um, Corey Trice is the interesting piece of this, Chris. Every time I talk about Corey Trice, I was very, very intrigued by him. He had a really good pick against Denver, and then he went up against Jamar Chase man to man a lot of the time, and he got cooked a fair amount. But he also had some really good reps. This
Hmm.
feels like to me, a player that could be a legitimate answer for them. He just needs to stay healthy. They can't trust him until he stays healthy, but he has the potential to be a gem for them. I feel like.
I think the big thing here for the Steelers is they need to get back the secondary to playing an aggressive style of play that allows them to bump to run to kind of force quarterbacks to hold on to the ball because again this all kind of boils back down to TJ Watt, right? Like what were teams doing to stop TJ Watt? They were double teaming him, they were triple teaming him, they were chipping him extra, and they were getting the ball out quickly. And they were able to get the ball out quickly because they were able to pick at certain weaknesses in the Steelers' coverage. If the Steelers are able to take those things away, now the quarterback has to hold on to the ball for at least 3, 4, 5 seconds. And then when that happens, that gives the pass rush more time to work. And then the twofold thing is the thing that they addressed in this draft class. They need more help along the line to say, hey, if you're gonna put all this attention on TJ Watt, that means our other guys are going to be able to win in their one-on-ones, and they need those guys to win more often. That's where Hayward, who does that pretty well, but Benton needs to be better at that, and I think that Benton can be better at that. I think Harmon can be good at that. Highsmith certainly has done that a lot. If you get that back, that's the stuff that gets you back to being an elite defense and not just a good to very good defense.
Right. And Trice is the perfect type of corner to do that. If
I
you
think
have,
so.
we talked the avatars corners, they got this length, they're big, big corners. Trice is even more fluid than Joey is. I remember talking with Alan Saunders about this during their rookie years. And before he went down, Corey was matching Joey stride for stride, if
Hmm.
not better. Like Corey was really good that year. And then he had a great camp last year and they pulls his hammy in week 3 and is out for
Yeah.
8 weeks, and that's that. And it's just, you got to make sure he's healthy. Let's go to the slot here. I think this is the biggest question of maybe the entire defense, honestly, right now, Chris, is what do they do in the slot? I feel like Beanie Bishop last year had some promising moments through the first 8. Then obviously gets benched for Cam Sutton. Sutton's gone. Who kind of rises out? I know I'm intrigued by Sebastian Castro. They drafted Dante Kent, who's a primary slot. What do we feel about the slot corner room right now? Because to me, right now, it's better than last year. Just no offense by the addition by subtraction with Cam Sutton. But there's still questions here to me about the slot corner position, and it's one of the biggest things I hate about their roster building is that they haven't kind of put in the draft capital to this specific position in recent years.
No, I feel you. Listen, if you get slot right, it opens up so much more flexibility with what you can do on defense. Like you go back to that playoff game, the first touchdown pass that Lamar Jackson threw, the Steelers had a switch in the coverage that they were working, and Cam Sutton was in the slot, and he was supposed to he was supposed to fake being in a lower position, drop back into deeper coverage, and then wait for Lamar Jackson to throw a pass that would be right to him. It was the right play call. He just played it terribly, and he played the ball terribly. And if he just gets to the spot that you can see that they were designing for him to be at, he's right in position to intercept the ball, and that game starts off at least better for the Steelers. They don't give up that early touchdown, and who knows, they're only down 7-0 in the early stages of that game. But that's where you got to be. you need guys to help there, but also slots intricate because you need to be good at press coverage, you need to be good at off coverage, you need to be good at helping against the run. You need a guy like Mike Hilton did a lot of that. Now he wasn't as good as when it came to deeper coverage. Once you got past like 10 yards, then he started to struggle, and that's why they were okay with not paying him what the Bengals paid him. But it's tough to find those guys. It's also tough to value those guys too, right? Because, how much do you want to pay a slot corner versus, premier outside cornerback play or premier edge rushing or premier run stuffers? And at there's got to be weak spots in your roster. And I think the Steelers have kind of conceded like, okay, slots where we will be just not be paying a whole lot or not investing a whole lot, but we're hoping to find bargain deals, kind of like how they did with Mike Hilton because he was an undrafted free agent. And funny enough, I mean, Mike Hilton, you were tweeting I think the other day about Senquez Golson,
Yeah.
and he could have been that guy, but then he got hurt. Never, he was a second round pick, never played in the NFL, and Mike Hilton was his teammate, and so then Mike Hilton became that guy. So I think that Eccles could be good. I need to see how he works with the Steelers. I liked what I saw to Beanie Bishop. I think that he certainly needs to improve against the run and help there more. But I think that it could be better next year. Now, granted, like you said, it's not like I don't think it'll be over a whole lot better, but I think it can take a step up. And like you said, not having Cam Sutton in, let's face it, Cam Sutton for his first stint with the Steelers was very good. He was a really good outside and inside corner who could fit in several different spots. Last year was a complete and total disaster as he missed assignment after assignment. That's the thing that they cannot have this year.
Yeah, and he just speed wasn't there as he didn't have great speed, but it was just completely gone last year. So he couldn't play man to man. They beat the Commanders, but go back watch that tape. They were lucky
Oh yeah.
Cam Sutton didn't get burned for like two touchdowns in that game.
Yeah.
The pressure saved him in that one. But this year, I think that they maybe get back to a 2022 type role. And what that means is it's not going to be Shannon Sullivan and
Right.
whatever else you could put in there. And last year, I think it might be, Beanie Bishop, maybe more on passing downs, and then you can maybe have a Sebastian Castro, I think, who's a guy that to watch here in the slot as a tackler, or early down kind of overhang tight end guy. That's kind of what he fits. I'm a big Sebastian Castro believer, so I think he has a chance to make this roster. But the slot corner position definitely concerns me. The outside corner position, I think it's going to be fine. I think they're going to be okay. It's not going to be an elite group, but I think it should be a solid one. Safety. I think this is the interesting one, Chris. Minkah Fitzpatrick. A lot of his impact isn't on the box score. He's turned himself into one of the best tacklers in the league at safety. He's an elite tackler, open field tackler. But the picks, it hasn't come for about 2 years now. How did the Steelers get Minkah back to being Minkah? Because when you have a $24 million cap hit, you're paying for more than just really good open field tackling. You're paying for elite ball hawking and really erasing parts of the field. And Minkah does that to a degree, but you're paying for the whole package.
No, you are. I think it's similar to what happened with TJ Watt towards the end of the year. You need the other parts of your defense to be good enough so that teams can't make their whole plan. We're going to make sure that you aren't the playmaker, which is what I think teams have effectively done against Minkah Fitzpatrick for the past couple of years, where they just don't throw the ball his way that much. And the Steelers have not been this elite coverage team that can put you in positions where you got to take those risks. And they also don't have an offense that puts you behind as much so that you feel like you have to take those risks. But you look at what teams are often doing, they're happy to go at Joey Porter Jr. because they're looking for the penalty or go up against, Dante Jackson or other guys like that. Yeah, and I think that's what was really on Minkah Fitzpatrick's side in those all pro years. He had Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson just fighting every single play and would get him. When cornerbacks like those guys aren't open, I got to try the middle part of the field, and that's where the guessing games start to happen. Which is why, again, when you don't have an elite tier quarterback or an upper tier quarterback, a guy that you think that you're very confident in, it's why you try to avoid the field a lot more, because that's where safeties and disguised coverages can come more into play, and that's where Minkah Fitzpatrick can be very dangerous. But teams, they don't go there as much. Now the Steelers are also one of the better teams at defending the middle part of the field because of Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's able to limit the spots there, and he's able to help there. But I think part of it is you want to have a chance for Minkah Fitzpatrick not to just be coming up on guys that are thrown underneath him, but having offenses taking shots in his vicinity. That's when he's at his best, and it just teams haven't had to take more desperate shot plays because of the Steelers offense, and they also haven't been pressed to avoid the Steelers cornerbacks because their cornerbacks haven't been as good as they were when Minkah Fitzpatrick was at his best. You look back at what he was able to do in some of those years where he was just racking up the interceptions. 5 interceptions in 2019, 4 interceptions in 2020, 6 interceptions in 2022, and he's just had 1 interception since then. I don't think Minkah Fitzpatrick's fallen off. I think the Steelers situation around him hasn't been as good, and that's led to more issues with it. It's allowed teams to find easier ways to avoid throwing his way.
Yeah, I mean, last year, I think that they avoided him. 23 he was just hurt a lot more than usual. He
Very
had
true.
knee issues. So that was part of it too. I think Minka is a prime bounce back candidate if they can get into the right spots. Deshaun Elliott obviously was fantastic. We'll see what Juan Thornhill can
Yes.
bring. But my thing with this is, and this is kind of a bigger topic with the secondary and really the defense as a whole is, and we've talked about this. I thought they were way too vanilla on defense last year.
Mm.
Too much spot drop cover three, too much of this and that, just basic things. A lot of it was because they couldn't communicate, though. That was a big part of that. The other part of it was I don't think they trusted the personnel necessarily. They didn't trust their outside corners. They didn't trust the slot. They didn't trust a lot of guys. Like the play calling on defense didn't show trust in their corner situation. Slay now is almost trust proof. Like you trust Darius Slay no matter what because he's Darius freaking Slay, right? Like I
Hmm.
think that helps them to maybe start to move things around, disguise things. Because I remember when Minkah would come in 2019 and 2020 and even 22, he would be all over the field. He'd be down in the robber roll. He'd be in the box. He'd sometimes overhang the slot. He'd sometimes even jump all the way out outside. They'd use him all over the field. I think part of getting Minkah back to being Minkah is playing the chess game on the back end, Chris. And I
Yes.
just don't think last year they had the trust in the personnel, specifically a corner, slot, and outside corner across from Joey, to play the chess game. And so we saw a bunch of this kind of spot drop cover three, basic cover two. We didn't see a lot of their advanced coverages.
No, I agree. And I think part of it too is when they tried it occasionally, someone would blow it. And that someone
Yeah.
was often Cam Sutton. And like I told in the Ravens game, they tried an advanced coverage where they were moving guys around and the chess pieces were there. They just missed and they misplay it. And that's where you need it to be because that's the thing. When you're doing the chess piece thing, it can't just be one guy that's playing really well. It has to be the whole unit. Everyone has to be on point. And that's something that Terrell Austin, that's why Terrell Austin is defensive coordinator, is because that was something, excuse me, that was something that he was able to bring to the table as a DB's coach when he was working under Butler. He was like, hey, we can do this, we can do that. And then the Steelers like, okay, with Minkah Fitzpatrick, that's your job. You'll create that madness there. But when you're limited in what you can do and trust at the cornerback position, and you're a little more limited as far as the different disguises that you want to throw, and you're questioning, oh, will this guy be able to keep it here? Can he run with that guy there? Then you are in a tough position because then you do it. You start to be more vanilla, and that goes against the type of defense that you've wanted to be. I think the best version of the Steelers defense next year is a chaotic one, a chaotic an organized chaos, if you
Yes.
will, because it's not chaotic, just guys just doing random things all the time. Though you'd be surprised how often that actually does happen in the NFL when someone goes rogue and it does work out, and you're just like, they just, well, like, hey, I saw something there. But the organized chaos element of it, finding ways to keep people guessing about your coverage while also finding ways to keep people guessing about your pass rush plan, where you're and I think moving TJ Watt around is something that should be part of the plan next year. All those things can make this team better. But again, I think oftentimes when teams are more vanilla, it's because they're not trusting certain guys to do the more advanced things because they're still struggling with those basic things, and those are the things that cannot be a problem this year. And sometimes it's coaching, sometimes you're not getting the message across well, and these young guys are just not getting it. Sometimes you just don't have the guys. Chuck Noll said when he first took on the Steelers job in 1969, he gathered a team. He said, guys, I'm not going to give you a speech where I tell you, oh, you just need to work harder, or it's your work ethic. No, you guys just aren't good. And the fact is, when by the time this team's ready to be a world champion, most of you aren't going to be here. And that there's times it's like that. Now the Steelers aren't anywhere near what they were in 1969, But I do think a guy like Cam Sutton, being part of the secondary last year, as much as I appreciate Demonte KZ, I think that he's not what they really need as their third safety option. KZ could hit well. He could move around. He could be part of things. But Juan Thornhill to me projects more as that third safety option that can be more of the floater that helps in deep coverage a lot more, is comfortable playing in those spots in the cover two, cover three role. That's the stuff that if this secondary gets back to, you're going to see those chess matches happen more, and that's where Minkah Fitzpatrick pops up on the screen a lot faster.
Yeah. So just for some stats, guys, no one in the NFL ran more cover three last year than the Steelers. No one. They ran it 45% of the time. That's a lot of cover three. Modern NFL, you just don't see much cover three because it's easy to pick apart. A lot of coaches know where the bones are buried, is what I like to say. They know what a spot drop cover three looks like. They can dial it up, and you can have mediocre personnel and still beat spot drop. It doesn't matter how good your guys are. So the Steelers didn't do a ton of that this year. I'm imagining we're going to see a little bit more kind of split field coverage just because of Joey and Slay's skill sets. Slay's probably better in a quarters cover six scheme. I think we might see some too high stuff. But Thornhill, I think, that's the thing. When we're talking about Minkah, Minkah had to really float, 20 yards back behind the line scrimmage all the time. So all
Hmm.
Minkah was really doing a lot of the time was just taking away the canopy, right? He was being the canopy,
Hmm.
the last line of defense. This year, I think the hope is going to be, can we get Thornhill back there and get Minkah down to the box a little more?
In that robber role.
Yep, the robber role is going to be big. I think you can see him. I like it when they use him sometimes as kind of that sleeper slot option. I think he's
Mm.
decent in man coverage. So when they can have him kind of rover up over the top and then come down against tight ends, take away guys like Andrews and Joku, likely that type. I think they lacked that ability last year because they didn't have the slot weaponry to do it. I think that there's just more options for them with Minkah this year, and that's going to be, I think, the big part of this is trying to get him back. What do you kind of see them doing though with their coverage schemes? Because the one thing about the Slay signing, Chris, that I do think is weird is Slay at this point in his career is not a man coverage corner. He is
Right.
a zone primary corner. So you can't be having Slay run out there against T Higgins and Jamar Chase in man to man.
No.
So do we see more quarters? Do we see more cover six? Do we see a shift more towards some too high stuff maybe that we haven't seen before? I wonder if that's interesting because here's my Galaxy Brain theory, Chris. They add
Yeah.
a lot of beef up front. Ekuale, Harmon, Black. Theoretically, if you can play too high, you got a lot of tonnage up front that can help you play too high if you wanted to. I wonder if they're going to move to that a little bit this year.
That would be interesting, back to like the old Tampa 2 philosophy where you're playing too deep a lot more and you're protecting against that and you're trusting, hey, our front is going to handle that business. That would be very interesting to see if the Steelers could pull that off in today's NFL, especially when you kind of consider like, wait a second, you mean they're going to drop a safety back and be better against stuff in the run? But if they did pull that off, Nick, that'd be a pretty good upgrade for the Steelers
It
defense.
would.
Like you think about it, they're adding another coverage option, more complexity to their coverage while being better at stuff in the run. That's hand in hand. That would put them in a really good chance to be that category of an elite defense next year.
And here's why I say that. You have two cyborg linebacker athletes in Queen and Wilson. Both of them can do it. You have two really good run stuffing box safeties in
Hmm.
Elliott and Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick's better at deep, but he's really good in the box if you need him
Yes.
to. So you can do that. So you can essentially, if you're running the three safety nickel, you can essentially use Deshaun Elliott as a Sam linebacker. And that's what he
Mm.
was at times last year. And I think you can kind of fill things in here. And so if you're a better run defending team up top, I think that allows you to do different things. And what it allows you to do is to kind of mask Darius Slay's one weakness, which is the athleticism. We know he's smart. We know he's got the ball hawking ability. He's even a decent tackler. Like Slay competes. And so to me, if you're putting the ideal fit together, you're not going to get rid of all of the, cover three, cover one. You're still going to be a primary cover one, cover three team. But if you can mix in the cover six, the quarters a little bit more, just to get teams a little bit off their rocker and make sure Slay's a little more comfortable. Because I think Joey last year, when they did play quarters, Joey showed some really interesting instincts on quarters coverage where it was like, oh, Joey, you can do that now? Like, there's a different thing. So that's my Galaxy Brain theory, Chris. I think that we might see it just to make Slay a little more comfy.
Yeah, I think that'd be an interesting theory there to do that because you do got to protect him, right? Like you can't baby him, you got to trust him, but you can't leave him out on man to man islands for too long because that's asking for trouble at his age. But again, I do think I do like the chances of him of them being more complex and how they provide protection for him on the back end with safety, like you said, two high looks. But again, with two high looks, you could still be very diverse. You don't have to be just cover two. You could be cover four. You could cover six. You could float different things around. And again, it's those things. Like when I started attending games as a reporter and getting to and I started like really diving in on film. I remember like the Steelers of the mid 2010s and just looking at that group and like how vanilla a lot of their coverages were, but partially because that's just who they had. They couldn't trust their guys to be too aggressive. But then when they got the safeties that could float around, that's when that's when I started to see like this is the stuff I've been waiting to see. Like it would be very rare if you ever saw Sean Davis, flex from a cover two to a cover six or five, and that fool a quarterback. But that became a very big trait for Minkah Fitzpatrick when he became with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So and having him and Elliott and now Thornhill back there, that's going to help them do that. And don't forget too, like the cornerbacks they play into this as well because they'll play press and they'll back off and be the deep cover man for a side of the field. So I think there's a lot of potential for this group. I really do. I do think that they have upside, and if they can hit on like 80% of that, like if Joey Porter and it has to include Joey Porter Jr. He has to be part of 80%, but if Joey Porter Jr. is playing at a high level, eliminating the penalties or at least minimizing those penalties, so they're not that big of a problem. And then the run defense is taking care of its part and putting teams behind the eight ball a little bit more on third and longs and making them play more predictable. I think you're going to see some Minkah Fitzpatrick interceptions back in the fold this year. And when he starts picking off the ball, Steelers they play so much better when he does that.
It's all part of the plan. Turnovers, short fields for the offense, around a pound. It's the Steelers' idea of winning football. So we'll see if they can get back to it. But Chris, want to thank you for coming on the show, man. Make sure to let the people know where they can follow your stuff, read your stuff, watch it, all that great jazz.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Nick. I'm Christopher Carter. You can find me on all my social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, well, not Facebook, but Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all of the same places, same handle, at Carter Critiques. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. You can find me on the Locked On Steelers podcast, on your favorite podcasting apps, and on YouTube. Be sure to like my videos, just like you should like this video right here that Nick's doing, and subscribe to get all of our work. That's why I have Nick on so many times because he's a great guy and he knows what he's talking about. So always happy to do it. And Nick, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no problem, man. Chris, make sure to go check Chris's stuff out. He's great. That's why I like having Chris on. We know what we're talking about. We can have ball knower conversations. That's what I like. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notification bell here, guys. If you want to read my stuff, make sure to go over to penlive.com/Steelers. Make sure to follow me at Farabaugh FB as well on Twitter and Blue Sky. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week.